Hey everybody, it's Hot Hollow Point here. Just going to be doing a test cast of the Supreme Commander 2020 mod, see how things work out here. If you guys like the content, then I will probably produce more. Anyways, here we go. This match is on Open Palms. It features myself against a gentleman named Potato Man, and we will get right into the match here. Both ACUs teleporting in. We've got on the south here our Potato Man UEF, starting with a land factory, and myself, Hot Hollow Point, on the north side as Orange Aeon, starting with research. Now the mod does offer you a lot of affordability as far as what you'd like to see from your build orders at the start. As long as you're able to use your build order to press your advantage, then you should be able to win the game. So right now, Potato Man has to focus since he chose lands. Usually what you would do is start with an engineer in order to leverage the advantage of your land factory into expanding into your economy. The mass extractor is at the front of your base. And if you are in the position where you decide to go research first, then you want to leverage your research into whatever it is, whatever strategy it is you choose to try to win. So I'm ramping up not only with my research stations, but following up with my mass extractor points. I don't. This game's kind of old, so I don't really remember what strategy it is I went for exactly. Potato Man now finally building his engineers so he can expand his power. And what I mean by leveraging your advantage is these tanks that he built are now just sitting here, so they're somewhat of a waste. He should have just gone for an engineer right off the start. Also, the other advantage of going land first and building engineers is that you can heal up your ACUs. You can see your ACU in the mod only spawns in with 1/3 health. Let's go check back in on the Orange Aeon player myself. Hot Hollow Point. And he's just doing his initial build. Potato Man now using his ACU to build some more engineers. That's a good play, I think, off the start. Like I said, it helps you leverage your advantage. Now let's see what his second engineer does here. The proper play, I think, would be to heal up his ACU. And then that way you can... Yes, he does that. That way you can use your ACU earlier in the battles. And it's a very effective weapon early game. Especially the UEF's ACU. It has a range advantage over the other ACUs. The Aeon ACU has a regeneration advantage, so you'll notice I am already slightly higher health points than he was, despite the fact that, see, he now has his engineer healing himself. So he's finally above me in hit points, but until he did that, the Aeon ACU does heal faster. Now I just finished my first land factory. As you can see, now I'm assisting the factory in producing the engineers. Engineers in the mod do take a long time to build. They're quite an investment. Losing them early game is definitely a hindrance because of the build time. Part of the reason that they are so long to build, though, is that they essentially act as a higher tier of units compared to your smaller units here. Cybern engineers get the plasma gun upgrade that's really deadly. And the UEF, you'll probably see it in this game since it's a very valid strategy. Field engineers are the T2 unit for UEF. Now you can see I'm really ramping up my power production. If I had to guess, since power took so long for me to build, it was what I rushed on my ACU. The Aeon ACU has a pretty early game power or energy production upgrade. Now you can see I've spammed enough energy to build all of these factories and have them produce. Looks like I also purchased bots, which bots are pretty overpowered in this meta right now, just because of their move speed, depending on the map that you're on. If the maps are really only have choke points and are smaller, then the bots aren't as good. You're better off building tanks or T2 units if possible. But Open Palms is a fairly open map. You can flank on either side, so if you happen to get behind, you can clear out your opponent's mass extractors. But we'll see what happens. We're now 6 minutes into the game. Usually by this point, one player or another has pushed up an ACU into the middle to try to snipe off, use the ACU's early game power to snipe off some of the smaller units. Potato Man, though, choosing to use his ACU to build, but it does look like I'm moving my ACU up with my assault bots. Meanwhile, my engineers have taken over production. I'm fully healed, as is Potato Man pretty much. And when you are fully healed as your ACU at the start of the game, whenever it happens to be, whether it's whether you get an engineer on it right away and it's at 4 minutes, or whether you delay a little bit and it's more like 6 or 7, you should still, as soon as your ACU is healed, get him into the fight, because his weapon is so valuable early game at picking off these smaller units that you can really leverage your advantage if played properly. As you can see, I've set my waypoints, my factory waypoints, on the southern flank. As I said, I'm guessing I went for the energy mod on my ACU, which the prerequisite for that is a radar upgrade, so I probably have a pretty good idea of what's going on here. Now you can see my ACU just one-shotting these tanks. They did chip away some damage at them, did about 2,000 damage with their first volley. But that's nothing compared to the amount of tanks that he's losing. He's losing DPS every time one of those tanks explodes, which is every 1 second. Does have his health down to about 23,000 of 30, but in come his reserve units. And he's just going to sort of kite. That's the proper move. Just kite these tanks out with your ACU. Now, as you can see, the tanks are kiting the bots, which is not ideal. I should be shifting my bots to the south here to attack the mechs. Now he really needs to get his ACU in the fight here. He's making a choice, though, to expand on the north flank, which is admirable. It'll leave him with a way larger economy than I have. However, he's sort of falling behind in the units because my ACU is just able to stand here and pick him off mercilessly. Also, better base positioning on his part. If he had put, since UEF factories just start with shields, you might as well put them in front of your mass extractors. He does manage to keep my forces at bay, though some sloppy micro on Potato Man's part. He left his engineer instead of building the next round of mass extractors to get sniped off. I mean, there's absolutely nothing he can do about my ACU in the position it's in right now. Even if he were to try to chase me with his land blob, number one, they're slower than me. And number two, I shoot further, so I can just infinitely kite them for the most part. And as well, if he does choose to chase me with his land blob, my land blob gets to run in with impunity. Enough. If I had proper recon, I would probably be pulling my bots out, but I think I gave up. My primary radar source is my ACU, which does not have a huge radius, so I think I'm walking in here pretty much blind, maybe with the vision upgrades. So I'm pretty much giving up this land blob for no purpose. This is a bad play on my part. Though I do have factory numbers to replace it quite easily. Well, after that battle is over, he ends up having a definite numbers advantage on me. Or at least maybe not a numbers advantage, but a firepower advantage due to the fact that tanks do more damage. Or at least have a better alpha strike. I do believe actually bots do more damage for the most part, but they have both a shorter range and not as much alpha damage. We'll see what happens with this fight here, though I'm anticipating losing most of my blob. And if you remember what I said about recon, I obviously don't have the proper intelligence here to know that any run-by I try with my troops here is just going to be fruitless since he hasn't built up his rear mass extractors. Now, Potato Man does have quite the numbers advantage here. He could press if he wanted. He really actually should be pressuring me. And then that way, I'm not really... He can take away the pace setting of the game from me, especially if he had his reserve troops in the right spots. If he had the second blob up here, I would have to pull back units in order to defend, which means that I wouldn't be able to attack here. So really, in this case, his best defense would be a good offense, but he's not really microing his troops properly. Oh, that the north blob is finally moving. And as you can see, exactly what I said would happen is starting to happen. I'm having to pull my troops back in order to defend. It's a good play on Potato Man's part there, though I have switched, at least for a few of these factories, from bots into tank production, which tanks are better at defending than bots are, that's for sure. And seeing as I started this game with a double research, I am still only sitting on 2 research stations, so he may have caught up for me. Yes, he has caught up to me in research, if not surpassed me, because of the way the UEF's economy works. Their research station bonus. You can trade any excess energy you have for research, occasionally using your research stations by overdriving them. Got a two-fronted battle now breaking out, surrounding this middle mesa. I'm sending my bots to defend on the bottom and my tanks to the top, which just seems to be sort of a, I think it's a micro thing. Instead of splitting my forces and having to constantly micro two different mixed forces, it's sometimes easier to just split your units by their unit type. It also allows you to use the advantages, like the fact that my move speed on my bots is higher than his tanks, and my tanks are better defensively, so I might as well send my more mobile units towards his base and keep my better defensive units in my base. Though I am starting to pay for it a little by not having units that can really properly catch up to him. My units having to path around the back of my factory here in order to try to catch up. Meanwhile, his pretty tanky UEF units are wreaking a bit of havoc in my base, though it's not going to be too bad. I think my forces will take him out in the meantime. With all the action that was happening there, I missed a fight that went on here. I see a lot of corpses. Now, I'm definitely starting to outpace him production-wise, I would say. Potato Man, the green UEF, sitting still at just 7 factories. Meanwhile, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 factories. Oh, he managed to take out a second factory with his land blob. Good for him. That was a good push. Now, one thing I'll observe is he should have his reserve forces. He's got his waypoint set back in his base still. He should push that up to just choose a flank, whether it's the mid, southern, or northern flank, and have your units gather there. There's no point in having them do otherwise. Oh, as you can see, these units just flashed, which means they're using their special healing ability, which makes them virtually indestructible unless you manage to kill them on their first hit. As you can see, almost all of them have full health still, though that upgrade just ran out, which means that they will now face annihilation at the hands of the superior UEF firepower. Now I do replace my 2 factories that he took out, so I think I'm up to 11 or 12 factories now, if you include, maybe even 13 if you include the new ones on the southern flank. So I am definitely outpacing him, I think, economy-wise and production-wise, so if I'm able to keep this up, it's only a matter of time before I win the game. Oh, and research. I definitely have more research than him. He's still at 2 research stations, whereas I've got at least 4. As you can see, I'm must have an energy surplus. I'm able to overdrive 3 of my mass extractors, which is going to give me a lot of extra mass with which to build a bigger army. Really starting to pressure this northern flank now. He may not be able to hold us off. The land units do scale a bit better than your ACU, unless you put a lot of research into him. Looks like Potato Man, though, now has shields on his individual units. Any new units rolling off the factory will now have shields on them. Previously built units, still just with their basic upgrades. Let's check his health here. He did upgrade his commander, or he has a unit in veterancy, one of the two. Just managing to hold off this force of mine. It's a good placement of his ACU under the shields. I mean, there's no point at that in that instance of even trying to attack his commander. UEF's factory shields can be recharged once on an ability. See, now the fact that he had his factory's waypoints in his base instead of on the front line is going to probably cost him here. As I should be able to pick off this mass extractor, if not, do a run around and get him from the back. Get him from the back. Potato Man attempting to put up a point defense. If he does manage to get that all the way up, this land force is just going to get annihilated, especially... Yeah, he must have recharged his shield because it's back at nearly full health. Now I start pulling my forces back, I think, because I probably realized that that point defense was going to mess me up if I tried to stay. Just zoom in on his tanks a little here, and we see that they do have the shield upgrade on them, and some of them, I believe... Oh, I'm mistaken. I thought I saw triple barrel, but they are still only all at double barrel by the looks of it. I really feel like Potato Man is not defending his southern flank enough. He really probably needs some more engineers, too. I can't see... the economy that he's got, him being able to spend all the mass with this number of factories and engineers producing. He does now have an engineer making him some research, which is good. He really needs to get this extra reserve group pushed forward to his front flanks. I'm obviously building up a big offensive on the southern flank here. Now you notice I have my engineers in the fight. It's actually mostly because radar stations in the mod are quite expensive. Mass-wise, they cost almost as much as a factory, just because of the advantage. It's such a huge advantage that having a radar gives. So it's often cheaper to just build an engineer and send it to the front line, despite the risks, despite the fact that both of my engineers got sniped off. Horrible micro on my part. But the bots do have quite a sight range on them, especially when they're upgraded. And it is an early game upgrade, so I'm assuming that I've got that. Especially since I do believe yes, I've got an urchin owl building from my factory. I think it really spooked me when I came in and saw that he had a land gantry. But in the mod, you can build land gantries before you research any experimentals. So it is possible to just sort of like bait the guy into thinking you have experimentals even when you don't, and that's what he did. Since the UEF's experimentals are super scary, if you get enough of them, then you literally can just death blob anything in the game. And they're unkillable because of their range. You need about 6 or 7 of them. They do take a while to build, and they're expensive, but if you get 6 or 7 fat boys, you can probably kill just about any base, except the most heavily defended. Now, Potato Man sort of sending his groups of units in one at a time. It would have been smarter to just, this forward group, when it was the size of this one, send it a bit south and bring this one up from the back so that you can, you know, have 2 large groups defending. I do manage to separate my bots here on the south and do a run by. There's no way he's going to catch me. He's having to split his forces, and that's not good because now they are just going to get picked off, I believe, with their inferior numbers. And really, again, I'll just say, if he had had his waypoints in proper positions, I would personally would put these main base waypoints up where his group is here now, so that they can have a little flex defend here. And then the sub-base's waypoint I would put a little forward here instead of back in the base here, just to give them a more threatening posturing. He does have a huge defensive force, so despite the fact that he has inferior numbers, the way that he's built his research into his land units, despite the inferior numbers, they are a superior force. My unit's not having shields or any health upgrades by the look of it. Instead, I think I focused on economy on my ACU, if I'm not mistaken, so I could try to outspam them and then out-research them in the late game. I believe that was my strategy. As I said, this is a pretty old replay, so I don't exactly remember what happened. My Urchinau is now coming in on the southern flank. It's going to be really bad news for him, especially since he still has not started building anything with his experimental gantry. It's unfortunate, because if he did have the economy to do that, then he would be winning the game right now. He's, however, I think forced to build more small unit factories, just because he doesn't quite have enough research, probably, is his problem. The UEF's Fat Boy is sort of awkwardly placed in their tree behind a bunch of other expensive things. I'll check these. This might be the final little push here. My land forces going around the back and pushing in 2 of his fronts at the same time, though I don't think this attack on this front will be successful. His point defense just pecking away at my units quite easily. We'll check over here though and see that my Urchinaus are cleaning up on his land force here. Not to mention my superior numbers rolling in behind him. It's a war on 3 fronts. Successfully defends the back, though now these units are just sitting here as a waste. They need to get to the front. My 3rd Urchinau now on the field, and I'm building my 3rd gantry. I think this game is going to be over quite soon. Let's let this battle speak for itself at this point. I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time. Oh, I do see his UEF gantry up here is finally building what I'm assuming is a Fat Boy. But it's probably going to be too little too late. I've already got 3 experimentals knocking on his doorstep. Probably a 4th on the way. Yep, 4th on the way from the back lines. These UEF bases are notoriously hard to crack, especially he's put point defense on his factories. Lost 1 Urchinau already. I've got another one trying to escape, but he's getting blocked by his, body blocked by his relative here. Now, if he was able to put get mech guns on his extractors and research stations, he would be able to hold me off for a little while longer until he got a couple of fat boys, at least. That would be the idea. Maybe throw a few of the small building artilleries down, as well as mech guns, but he's probably a little short on the research. Even as a UEF player with the research boost, he still didn't really have that much energy, spare energy. And now I think it's just a matter of time as I meander through his base, giving him the final death blow. Oh, I just saw a fat boy shot come in, I think. Yeah, there's his fat boys out. So it's too bad he doesn't have like 3 more of those, or else this would actually be like a pretty close battle. But I think I just managed to out-economy him by using my ACU's economy upgrades and being a little more aggressive in getting my rear mexes. I think the final moments of this battle are sort of happening here. It was a good game, Potato Man. We're now 30 minutes into it on the dot. You can see those fat boy shots just clean up on everything. Does manage to hold me off. Probably some sloppy micro on my part. Not using my experimentals effectively to finish him off. Though I did ruin his economy, so I don't think he's going to be able to make a comeback here. Oh, you can see my ACU walking in here menacingly. I'm betting I have him thoroughly upgraded. Yes, he's at 45,000 health. As is Potato Man, though. One final little land skirmish happening on the southern flank here. I certainly have some type of upgrades since I just spat out a nanite. He does, Potato Man does get his second little man out. I keep calling them fat boys because that's what they're called in vanilla, but I did rename them to little mans because they don't really stand up to the fat boy name, in my opinion. The Supreme Commander 1 fat boys are just superior in every way. I'm losing my Urchin now quite quickly, but he should also lose his Fat Boy here, which is, as long as I kill that, it's going to leave him far enough behind. Now, if I was actually a good player, I'd be using that nanite to heal the Urchin now. And Potato Man being an awesome sport here and playing the game out to the end. It's what I really like to see, to be honest, is people who never give up. Like I said, if I was actually good at this game, I now have a second nanite sitting right beside the damaged unit. If I was actually good, I'd be using that nanite to heal the Urchin now. Oh, and those field engineers I talked about at the start of the game finally making an appearance. I mean, it's really a shame that with all the upgrades that Potato Man put on his land factory, he had never gotten those earlier in the game. If he had, then he may have been able to turn the tide, because as you can see, they do just massive amounts of damage. I upgraded my AC with a shield by the looks of it. Oh, I researched... Oh, sorry, I thought that was a will find you for a second. Now, I do actually have to be careful with my ACU here. Somewhat. He doesn't like counter snipe me with all his factory's point defense and stuff. I think though, oh, he did recharge his shields. Nice micro by him. Buys him a couple seconds of extra time, but my overcharge will be up in a second again, I'm sure. And that will probably be enough to end the game. So again, I do have to be careful. His ACU has a lot of health. My shield's already down. Just because I have overcharge doesn't mean that I should be getting too aggressive here. Our ACUs still have about an even amount of health, though. The way I'm pressuring him, I'm quite sure his time is limited. But hey, this is 2020 mod. Almost anything can happen. Oh, with the tele snipe. And the 100 tanks with the emergency beacon, that was the extra flash that you saw there. ACU emergency beacon brings in 100 tanks to help finish off Potato Man. Kaboom! And that will be the end of that game. My little escape pod flying away. Well, thank you for that, Potato Man. That was a great game. I hope you all enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed playing it and casting it. Until next time, everybody, have a good one.